We are live. Welcome to my video. This is going to be a completely spoiler-free review of the Rusty Lake franchise game, The White Door. This was released in 2020. And let's see. Yeah, there are some mature elements in the game that I might discuss. And yeah, absolutely love this, as with all the other Rusty Lake games. As per usual, I will talk vaguely enough about the various Rusty Lake games that you can watch this video and not be spoiled, even if you've never played a Rusty Lake game. But this video will build on what I've said in my videos on the other Rusty Lake games, so that I'm not repeating myself. So you might be confused if this is indeed the first video of mine you watched that is about Rusty Lake. This one, I think I'll start by saying, if your primary or a major part of the enjoyment of Rusty Lake games is the challenge of the puzzles, then this one might not really be your kind of thing, and that's fine. That's not really a criticism of the game or a dig at you. Personally, while I do love that element, there are several other things that I also really love, and those are still intact here. This, yeah, all the, other than puzzle complexity, this does everything that I want from a Rusty Lake game, as I've detailed in other videos on the franchise. Let's see. One really major complaint, some have, that others have had, that I want to discuss briefly. Some say it is tedious, and I appreciate why, because this is not the first Rusty Lake game to be set over multiple concurrent days. And you know, over the course of those, you might, you know, do some similar things. You know, yeah, let's go. You know, in Rusty Lake Hotel, multiple days you are taking care of the guests of the hotel. So, you know, you get some instructions, then you go to a room, and inside that room, then you have to do stuff for the guest. And in that one, there's more variety to those things than there is here. And the fact that this one is less varied is purposeful. One of the things is this was intended to draw in new players, you know, which is also part of what, like, you know, essentially any one of these, any Rusty Lake game that I've played so far, that can be the first way, and right, and to, yeah, I guess I've already said that elsewhere. Anyway, in other videos on Rusty Lake, yeah, this one, in some ways more than others, it is in part very baby steps kind of introduction to, you know, right. I suppose I should say, almost none of what I'm gonna say in this video is going to be criticism of this game or any other Rusty Lake game. I'm describing it so that, you know, more or less neutrally. You know, some of it you'll be able to tell, okay, really loves that element. Other parts I'm gonna describe more or less neutrally so that you have an idea of, because I do think this is, you know, I could tell from several there were multiple reviews where people were like, I love Rusty Lake, but I could not get into this, you know, and I 100% respect that. It wasn't my experience, so I'll try to just neutrally describe the elements that seem to have bothered people. Yeah, starting to repeat myself, so I'm going to move on. In some ways, like Rusty Lake Hotel, immediately you are either hooked or repelled, because you are seeing, like literally, the game opens and you see anthropomorphized animals. And very soon after, you realize there's something going on at this hotel that, you know, how do I keep this vague enough? Let's just say it might not be described as entirely proper. You know, it is a very intense, there's something there that is going to disgust a lot of people. And yeah, I mean, it is disgusting. And then it becomes, you know, are you fascinated, or do you, you know, put away the game and tell everyone you know, never, ever, ever, ever under any circumstances play a Rusty Lake game? And then this one is much more, like, I mean, it's still asking things, but, like, you could play this game if you just care about mental health care, you know, and nothing I say in this video is meant to denigrate people who don't like the game. Thank you, conservatives, for making open communication almost impossible, because everything has to be misinterpreted according to your warped ideology that's destroying the world. That was sarcasm. Conservatives can't tell when you're joking. Now, let's see, I think I want to talk more about the mental health care, but let me just briefly say the thing with the days. This is more, it has a more repetitive nature than the days in the other, you know, Rusty Lake games that have days. Yeah, where it takes place over multiple days is what I mean. And the in-universe explanation is that you play as Robert Hill, and he is in the mental health institution that gives the game its title. The short title, The White Door, not the full title, which according to IMDb is Rusty Lake, The White Door, but that's probably more about making sure people know it has to do with Rusty Lake. Anyway, yeah, you know, it's one of those places where they try to make sure that your day is predictable in a way that is meant to be calming. And I mean, I don't know, I do have ADHD, and video games is on a very short list, and at the top of it, of things that, where I can intensely focus. You know, I tried medication, it made things worse, so you know, I'm not the right person to ask if you know, people who don't have ADHD and are not, you know, don't find it extremely easy to focus intensely on video games, if they might find this tedious, you know. And also, like, during my day, I have a lot of, you know, I have, like, somewhat loose, but a kind of schedule, which I understand drives other people up a wall to have. So, yeah, that's part of why I'm describing this so neutrally. One of the things is, like in some of the other, you know, and yeah, to a greater extent here, you know, Rusty Lake, like, the thing, Rusty Lake, they're so freaking good. Yeah, it's slightly confusing that Rusty Lake is both the name of the franchise and the developer. I hope you can tell which I mean when yeah, but Rusty Lake are so freaking good at playing with the format, because, you know, and trying new things over the course of the games, you know. I've played a lot of point-and-click games from the 90s, and, you know, I love some of them. So some of them are some of my favorite games of all time. And I'm not saying they could have. There were very specific expectations back then, but I'm just so glad that we're in a time where it's, you know, economically feasible to be this experimental. You know, there are some things you know to expect from a Rusty Lake game once you've played one or two, but then there are other things where it's just completely different, you know. And then I compare it to something like, you know, I love the first three, the only ones I've played so far, Monkey Island games, but boy, do they... There's a lot of things where they kind of do very similar things in multiple of them. You know, I've done entire videos on those games, so I'm not going to get too much into it here, but just... I don't think Rusty Lake would have survived in the 90s, and I'm really glad that they are able to today. You know, just the other day, I thought to myself, wait, is it really over? And so I looked, and since last time I checked, there were new games. You know, there was a free one that I added that I'll be doing when I get to it chronologically, and there's one that I was able to wishlist. You know, I'm so glad that they're able to that this works for them, because it's absolutely working for me. But yeah, in the games of Rusty Lake where it's set over multiple days, there will be some patterns where, like, you know, you might have to talk to the same people in order to proceed, for example, each of the days. And in this one, you know, in this one, it's not so much talking to people. It's like some of the others. It's very like Cube Escape Paradox, very very claustrophobic. Not so much interaction with other characters after they had a good amount of that in Paradise and Roots, you know. And yeah, in some of the other days-based Rusty Lake games, when you talk to the same character, you know, on different days, something might be very, very different there. And so that can, you know, help really make it not feel so tedious. Here, what I think happened, why some people find it tedious, is that some of the time there isn't a lot of change. It was enough for me. I was never, you know, I would have been bothered by, you know, if there wasn't as much as there is. But yeah, and maybe also the fact that you can see what you are being asked to interact with and in what specific order, and you can see all the different things you're meant to interact with all at once. So there isn't as much the sense of, you know, in the other ones that are based on days, you have to go to different places. Now, sometimes those different places are just different parts of a hotel room, but still, you know. And I think, yeah, I'll just say, over the course of it, there definitely are some things that are very different based on which day you are doing a certain task, you know. But yeah, I mean, I get why some people found, you know, one of the things, you know, so in the game you have this calendar, and you can, you know, walk up to it, inspect it, and it says the times of day and what you're meant to do at that time. And yeah, you know, that's it. That's how you proceed in the game. You carry out those tasks at the time allotted. And one of those things is called self-care, where you, like, brush your teeth and wash your face. So, you know, I get why some people feel like that's, you know, too... Yeah, I get why some people feel it's tedious to be asked to brush your teeth, you know, multiple times in a video game. And that's another thing, like, in a way, it feels like it's I'm not sure I saw anybody else make this comparison. I'm not saying I'm necessarily the first, but I didn't read all the reviews. I could imagine others have already compared this somewhat to Portal. Because one of the few criticisms I've seen of the first Portal game, and I understand where they're coming from, I just don't think it's a problem for the game, is the idea that the whole game feels like the tutorial, and you keep expecting the game to start. That's true of Portal, and yeah, I could see how it could be true of this. And I don't know, I mean, I guess you could say, right, get it on sale, I always say that, but then, like, it seems like the Rusty Lake games fairly frequently go on sale on Steam, like a bundle that has, I think all of the ones that are released on Steam that you have to pay for are in the bundle, and, if you want to make sure you play all of them, go to the Rusty Lake developer page, linked through any of the Steam, if you find a Rusty Lake game on Steam, it says developer, click on that. Then you can see all that they've released, including the free games and the free short film. And yes, I am getting to the free short film also. I just got to play Cube Escape Collection first. Anyway, yeah. I understand why some people felt it was a letdown in that respect, that regard. And yeah, I think that's the thing. I can imagine some people like play this and be like, I kind of like this universe. Look up the developer, see that they've made a bunch of other games, and start playing those other ones. And again, like, I can't speak for the ones that came out on Steam after this one, but the ones that had come out before it, yeah, you can play them in any order, basically. Yeah, this works. I can understand if some people maybe feel like this should have been free. I don't really agree. They've rendered free several of their games already. I guess let's see, if you go to their own website, or no, wait, is that still a thing? Maybe you need to go on like your smartphone or something. But yeah, you can play the individual Cube Escape games on your smartphone without, those you don't have to pay for. And I mean, each of the ones I've played so far do tell you, okay, this is how you interact with the game. This more feels like, if you need it, like, really spelled out, if you need a lot of practice on easy puzzles, if you might easily get frustrated. And I did see, one positive review was from someone who said, I can never solve puzzle games, but here was one that I could. Now, I think that does pretty well cover. I think, yeah, part of what to me was, deeply engaging here was also, yeah, because it's these tedious tasks, every little deviation makes a strong impression, and that's the thing. Like, if one of the things you love about Rusty Lake is the morbid stuff, there's a lot less of that here. This is definitely of the chronologically the ones that have come out on Steam. This is the one that has the least amount of that, and I get why some people would and some of it is also much less, like, intense, but yeah, basically, you carry out a tedious day that, at first at least, seems like it's not really going to change. Like, it's just going to be, every day, same thing. At the end of the day, right, and I do want to point out, I said one of the things was like brushing your teeth, washing your face. Another one is a memory test, which, at the very start is not the most interesting, but gradually does get to be more challenging Rusty Lake puzzles. I would say by the end of this, the puzzle challenge level has reached somewhere that it tends to be at the start or at least early on in other Rusty Lake games. And again, it works as a sort of tutorial. So, if you can get all the way through this one, you can consider playing one of the others. Just know it's more, all of them are more difficult than this. I do also wonder, I didn't find anything just directly saying this. I have to wonder if maybe they, if you weren't a huge fan, you might have been put off if you tried to play all these. If, with Cube Escape Paradox Part 2. Because that one, wow, did it get complex by the end. So I think this might have been them like reassuring more casual fans, don't worry, there's, we haven't forgotten you. There is going to be stuff for you coming up. When you've carried, when you've gotten Robert through an entire day, that's also the thing. In this one, you are definitely playing as Robert. Basically, everything you do for love and as Robert. At the end of the day, you go to bed, and when you are sleeping, basically, you see dreams that at least appear to be basically memories. But every so often there'll be something where you're like, that can't have happened that way. And, you gradually realize what it was that happened, why Robert just one day is in this facility. And there are connections to the greater Rusty Lake universe. And I think that might be about what I want to say about the dream. So basically the puzzles in this, a lot of the time it is essentially just, you can tell what Robert is doing. Sometimes he'll even say, especially in the dreams, and you carry out the thing. It could be something like, Robert moving his hand from where it is to somewhere else. You drag the hand, and some people thought that was just, they couldn't stand it. I felt like we were being given a small, what's the word? See, the thing is, there are so many games where you just go up to a character, and then you click action until the conversation's over. And I'm sorry, I do find this more engaging, and I appreciate the people who don't love this game are not saying, oh, I wish it was all action key pressing. They love other parts of those games, of course. Or they don't love those games, perhaps, but I don't know. It really worked for me. I felt like we were being allowed to be part of Robert's story in this interactive manner, and I wanted to know Robert's story, I think this is a good place to... Right, I guess I'll just briefly say, so yeah, some of the puzzles, it's like pattern recognition, fairly simple deduction, that sort of thing. There is some, some slightly more complex stuff. There's at least one puzzle where you have to move, you move one block at a time, and you have to cover the entire screen in blocks, and if you miss even one block, you have to start over, so that one's slightly more, but you could brute force it if you really wanted to. There's no penalty to failure, as per usual in one of these Rusty Lake games. One of the things that I understand is part of why some of the puzzles are, many of the puzzles are much simpler. Right, actually I do just briefly want to... No, I'll remember. I'll make sure to remember. Remind me. But the yeah. One of the reasons the puzzles are simpler is that this experiments yet again, as Rusty Lake is wont to do, and the experiment here is the split screen, which I thought really worked. Because yeah, basically, like, Rusty Lake were a little worried that maybe people are going to be overwhelmed by both the split screen, which is like, I got used to it pretty quickly, but I can imagine, you know, some people might not, and yeah, the split screen. Normally in a Rusty Lake game, you could see one area at a time, and then you can move between the areas. And then in this one, you can see the entire room that Robert is staying in. And it's deeply claustrophobic. You feel trapped. Like, okay, I mean, the door's right there. There is, like, a buzzer to get someone to check on you, but the door is closed. Like, you could go right up to it, try to open, you know, manipulate the handle, doesn't open. And when you press the buzzer, which I also think only works, and it doesn't work at just any time of the day, or I don't know. Crap. I forgot to test it. Anyway, you know, my experience with the buzzer was that they don't exactly let you out, you know. So, yeah, like, you know, escape room used to be their bread and butter. Rusty Lake likes having you in a room that you might not know exactly how you got in there, or at the very least, you know, or sometimes it's worse. Sometimes you kind of chose to go in there, like, by playing the game. It's not that the game said, do you want to go into the room? But just, you know, and you want out. You want to leave, and you can't. And then you start focusing on what's inside the room, and that's something they excel at. They're so freaking good at this. And yeah, I really wanted to know why Robert is in that room. You know, why won't they let me out? And I would say that by the end of this game, I understood. And one of the things that really works is that the room is white. You know, like, everywhere you go, everything, like, there's little splashes of color, like, food, for example, can have color, and the memory training, which involves the block moving that I described before, there's some color there, but other than that, everything's black and white. And that, again, is just, it gets to you, you know, it's uncomfortable to look at, and there is a reason for it. Because it's not like they usually are, like, straight up black and white. It varies from game to game. Some are more, like, pastel-y than others, but yeah, this is the most just black and white of them, and I was quite happy with the explanation for it. Anyway, the split screen, as soon as you go to a, you know, part of the room, the other half of the screen, the one that isn't showing the entire room, is going to show the close-up that we're so familiar with from other Rusty Lake games. As soon as, you know, normally you see the room, and then you, like, say, okay, this is, what happened, you know, let's interact with this. You click on it, and then you get a close-up of that exact thing. Yeah, that's the close-up. Now you just, there's less clicks to get there some of the time, and certainly less clicks to get to the next close-up, you know. And I think that does about cover. Right, this one also had dialogue options, not like super complex, but some, and I thought it worked. And yeah, so the dreams, you know, that's where you get to go to other places. And do you know that thing? There's probably a word for it, probably in German. Apparently the Germans have a word for everything. Where, like, you want something for a really long time, then you get it, and you're like, I don't think I want it anymore, because that's kind of what the dreams are like, because, yeah, you get to go to other places, and it's just, like, Robert did not have the very best experience. Like it's not, it doesn't go as far as other Rusty Lake games, but there were definitely some very sad things, and the juxtaposition of the sadness and kind of some of the what's the word, like things that happen around it, and sometimes some of the places that the sad thing happens, such, you know, really, it's that thing of contrast making something much hit much harder. I think that might just about cover. Really love the ending here, and yeah, I think that I can't really say too much more. I think based on this video, if you play the game through the end, you'll know what it is I love about the ending. I guess no, I wouldn't be able to detail it. Anyway, yeah, I think that might just about cover. Yeah, I think that might be everything. Yeah, let's see. Yeah, some dislike the voice acting, saying accurately that the voices are fairly monotone. And see, I don't think that's a flaw or by accident. One of the things to remember is that these are the memories of someone having some mental health problems, and, you know, yeah, I mean, you know, some people, if they have like depression or something, like they might speak in a fairly monotone way, and sometimes when you are experiencing a certain, you know, when you're having a certain experience from a certain point of view, you might think other people are having that same experience. Like there's that thing about, you know, there was a monkey, ape, gorilla, something like that, where this one woman, like, she would visit it a lot and make eye contact with it, and she thought that, you know, this animal was also having a pleasant experience, and of course it turned out that absolutely was not the case. You know, it's, I believe that is why the voices are so monotone. You know, the developers made a decision. I understand that decision.